Folks, welcome to KYOS and our Fireside Chat series. We're doing a series of local interviews with local leaders and people in the community, and today we're pleased to have in studio City Council member at large, not in a district yet, Josh Pedroso. Josh, thanks for coming in.
Well, it's good to be back, Casey. I've missed this place a little bit, but it's good to talk to you and let people know what's going on.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you having here. Folks might realize or remember that Josh used to come in every other week and talk for, I think it was a half hour, 45 minutes about local issues. And unfortunately, we've gone through some changes here at KYOS. We don't have our weekday local programming, but we do have our weekend programming from 6 to 10. Would encourage people to listen to that. And I know people have asked about you. I've gotten calls, emails on our KYOS radio website here. You know, where's Josh? So it's good to have you in studio. What's happened since, been about 3 months since we've seen you?
Well, quite a bit's happened. First of all, we're started a new school year. We started back at the city doing a lot of stuff. During the summertime, stuff is still going on, but with people on vacation and stuff, you don't get as many of the issues that come up and what people want to talk about. And so we kind of like to fill the calendar quite a bit more. Not that they're not doing anything or we're not doing anything. It's
right.
about making sure that everybody as a council is there so we can make some decisions and move forward. So we've been really busy. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city that I'm pretty proud of. I like the fact that, just this weekend when I sat down, you were telling us about the article that was in the newspaper about the economy, picking back up in the city.
I think the name of the article is "Recovery is Taking Hold." It says we've got some definite signs to show that things are starting to improve. I want to take just a minute. You mentioned the school year. People, if they forgot, you're a teacher at Merced Union High School District over there on G Street.
Correct.
Teaching, I forgot already, social.
Right now I teach, I have 3 periods of geography, which is freshman social science, and then I have 3 periods of economics, and then in the winter semester or spring semester, it'll be 3 periods of government. Go figure it. City council member is economics and government teacher.
You should be well versed. Did you have to do summer school this year?
I did summer school this year, and I like doing summer school. I like doing this freshman summer school because it gives the freshmen who are coming in to be students at Merced High School an opportunity to have a familiar face or a familiar teacher on campus that they have a question, they can come in my class and I can kind of point them in the right direction.
Don't you also coach sports over there?
I do. I coached football for a year. I coached baseball for 4 years. I help out with and this year I help out with the girls golf team, and I don't really coach too much baseball or football anymore because it's very time consuming, and you do a disservice to the kids if you can't be out there every single day and helping out every day. And so I kind of took a step back, and I really do miss it. I miss it quite a bit because it's not just you see these kids in class every day, and then I try and make it out to as many sporting events or plays or band reviews and stuff like that as I can, because the students like to see their teachers out there and know that, not only do their parents support them and their family supports them, but, you create a better climate on campus or culture on campus if everybody's kind of invested in what they're doing. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Your
lovely wife Heidi, and you have 2 children now?
Just one.
Just one. Okay.
Yeah.
Owen. Yeah, he's not in your class yet, is he?
Oh no,
but they grow up quick.
He started school in August. He's in preschool at Our Lady of Mercy School.
Oh, great.
Which is really nice. We all went. This is the 3rd generation, I believe, of Pedrosos to go through that school. We went there from preschool through 8th grade, and my dad went there from kindergarten through 8th grade, and my aunts and uncles and everybody. And just so happens that my aunt is the principal over there.
That's right.
It's really easy to keep him out of trouble because we just say, hey, don't go see Aunt Judy because that's not going to be a good thing.
That's nice when the principal is your relative there.
Oh,
Keep him in line. I love OLM. I helped out this year at the booth at the fair, and every once in a while the Itlo feeds them a couple of times a year. And those kids are just so appreciative, and it's amazing what they do out there with the resources they have, and it's just a great institution. Well, look, you mentioned a lot was going on at the city council, and I think one of the latest things that happened I mean, we'll talk about many things, but one of the things I wanted to get your opinion on, because I think there's been some confusion, is this Parsons Avenue deal. I know that the mayor had made it a point to try to get these folks a day in the sun over there a couple of meetings ago. I know Pete Padilla, who was a former city council member, I think he still sits on the planning commission, kind of spearheaded this with some other folks over there. And the issue is whether Parsons should remain a major arterial, whether money should flow to this, or we should drive a stake in its heart. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a city council meeting that took up a lot of time, and there were some votes. What was your take on that meeting?
My take
or
on
the
it,
issue itself?
excuse me. One of the things that I've really appreciated since I've been on the council is we are a very people are very they care a lot about their city, and they care a lot about their communities, and especially where they live. Whereas this plan has been on the books for 55 years, and I understand that, and I understand people are upset about it. But I was really happy with the turnout and people coming out, both sides, and people who lived in the neighborhood were both sides. They were either for it or against it. Mm-hmm. But I think that one of the things I was really proud about of the people that came out was that nobody was negative towards anybody else. I mean, there was no negativity. It was just, this is why we don't want it, and it wasn't, a throw in the face or something like that.
Or this is why we need it.
Exactly. And I think that people did a good job with that. And I'll tell you, to be honest with you, the emails that I got in regards to this project were about 50-50. 50% in favor and 50% against it. Mm-hmm. And at that time, you have to look at the whole project, and
That's
you have
right.
to understand, how is this going to benefit, or how is this going to negatively detract from the neighborhood. And
mm-hmm.
I understood what the people were saying. I personally believe that is something that we need. I think we need that road. The road was designed for 94-foot right-of-way.
Right.
Now, when people say, the argument that always comes up is, well, why were houses allowed to be built that back up onto it? I don't know. I wasn't a part of those decisions. I think they shouldn't have been. They should have at least been notified. But I can't go back and change the past. I have to make sure that what we're doing for the city moving forward is, setting ourselves up for success. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think has kind of hurt us as a city in the past, and I'm trying to get away from that, is sometimes we lack a little vision, and we're not really, we're very reactionary, as opposed to saying, what can we do to be proactive, to make sure that when the next economic development boom, or whatever the boom comes through, that we're not sitting on the sidelines. We're right in the middle of it, and we're on the seat. Right. And if we can't be visionaries, or if we can't look towards the future, then I think we're going to set ourselves up for failure. It's one of those coaching terms. If you don't plan, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And I think that we need to do this. And it's unfortunate. I know people that are upset because of the way the neighborhood, what they assume is going to happen to the neighborhood. But I don't really think that. I think that they'll see the benefit. And then you have to also look, Casey, as the city continues to grow, mm-hmm. because of the way the city was set up when they built 99, development has to go north. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the only spot for it. And so as we move north, we still have to make sure that we can take care of the central part of the city and the south part of the city. Well, eventually we're going to annex UC Merced.
Yes.
We're going to do that.
Have to.
They're going to need emergency services. Mm-hmm. They're going to need that fire truck that has the ladder so that they can get out there to service it. Well, the most sense for the fire department, and to make sure that the UC is safe, is to keep that station at 16th Street. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it'd be to put it at Parsons. I don't want to put it at Parsons, because if you put that ladder truck, this is the big one, if you put that one at Parsons, well, then you leave the rest of the community vulnerable.
That is one of the concerns. Like you say, the growth is going to the north, but we don't want to leave out the west or the south side, depending on how you look at the directions.
And, those fire trucks are expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's
Atwater's finding that out.
You can't just go and pick one up off the scrap heap, and you don't want to.
No.
We're already, you getting every last breath out of our fire and our emergency vehicles, mm-hmm. because we just haven't had the resources to do that. And so in order to make sure that we're not leaving any part of the community vulnerable, it's something that I think we have to do. Unfortunately, it does go by the school, and the school district did support the Parsons Gap by 80 givens. They were okay with that, and so now it's just extending it. The school district did move the pickup and drop off to a different part of the school, so it's not right on Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's something that's moving, that's gonna continue to move forward.
Right.
The one thing that I think sometimes people lost sight on was there's no money there. There's no project. There's nothing there right now. And I've told the neighborhood, specifically Pete and Susan Walsh, who was a part of it, that I will not support taking money away from Campus Parkway, taking the focus off of Campus Parkway or 59 in order to jumpstart this. It's just not something that makes sense to me right now. Those are the two main focuses, but we have to keep our eye on the ball if money comes available for that project.
Well, sure. We've been looking at this, like you say, since the 50s, before you and I were around.
Exactly.
And a lot of money has flowed to Parsons. There's been a lot of land acquired over there off of Yosemite Parkway, the old towing company area there, over by Bear Creek, some houses for right-of-ways. So I think folks need to realize that this isn't something new. This isn't something that came up with the last two elections. We had a general plan revision not that long ago. I don't remember a big deal then about it. But like you say, I think it's just people getting used to the fact that, change is sometimes hard for people to envision. And when you're on the street, it happens. It's I can tell you it is difficult sometimes. But for the overall good of the community, and I think that's what you're talking about, is you have to have a bigger vision, more so than just one 94-foot wide street. And we need to position ourselves. Now, we can make it a less of priority if that placates people. But as these things come along, and if someday we do have the money, that project is going to move forward. And that's what I saw by the vote of the council. So I'm glad that you clarified that, and I think that brings up a good point. Let's talk about Campus Parkway. I know you've, when you came in before, you were very interested in trying to get, of course, we all heard about the Tiger Grant. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. Doesn't look like that's going to be in the cards. What do you think we need to do to promote Campus Parkway or get that built?
Well, we have to get it built, and there's different ways of First of all, one of the things that I went back to Washington, D.C. in May to advocate on behalf of Campus Parkway.
Our One Voice, correct?
On the One Voice trip. And I went back and we met with the Department of Transportation, who was in charge of giving out the funds for the grant. And we had a really good application. And we sat down with the assistant director, and one of the questions that we went with, one of the people in the meetings, let me just say, it was somebody that was a private landowner, owns land on Campus Parkway, who paid for himself to go out there because he recognized the importance of with us to One Voice. He happened to sit in the meeting and asked one of the questions, and asked the question: if we're not successful, can we call you up to find out why we're not successful? What did we miss in our application, so that if the transportation bill is reauthorized with Tiger Grant funding in there, which we don't know because Congress is on recess.
And that'd be next year.
It'd be next year. What is it that we can do to be more competitive? And so we're in the process of lining that up to make sure that we know what we have to do in order to get that road punched through. We have to get that road punched through. We're focusing a lot on major retail on that front side. But that's a perfect industrial park, a great industrial spot for businesses to locate. Mm-hmm. Walmart Distribution Center is still in the cards over there. I know sometimes people don't believe it.
Well, I've probably been a bit of a detractor. They were supposed to start building, as you know. And the good thing, I guess, is they don't want to sell the land.
That's a really good thing. And they don't want to buy the crop. They don't want to buy the almond crop that's currently on there. But one thing that, it's hard to believe, Walmart, the largest company in the entire world, was hit by this recession as well. I mean,
Exactly.
Big time they were hit. They went to these super stores like they built in Atwater, and they were trying other places. Well, they recognized that model doesn't work because
Exactly right.
boom and bust. They had to do something to move it back to where they just do those regional grocery type places.
Exactly.
And so because that plan wasn't as successful as they thought, it's kind of put us on the back burner for a distribution center. And that's the unfortunate part. But you look at other organizations and other companies who are looking at, wanting to come to Merced, they need a road. They want to be able to get the people from the north over here quickly on the freeway, be able to connect with the loop that's going to go around with the Bellevue Corridor and Atwater Merced Expressway.
Right.
But right now, that's a road that just goes to Childs Avenue. And so we have to do something.
We're going to talk about this after the break, and I appreciate you coming in. Folks, stick with us on the special fireside chat. We have our Air Quality Management District approved insert here, so not to worry. We're not polluting the air, folks. We'll be right back after these. Folks, welcome back to the second segment of our fireside chat. In studio, we have Council Member Josh Pedroso. Josh, you're in your last term, aren't you?
My last term.
You'll
correct.
be termed out in 2018.
2018.
So 4 more years to go. I think you got an extra little bit of time with the charter referendum where we're trying to pair up our elections with the county, save ourselves a little money. We were talking about Campus Parkway and how important it is to bring the stakeholders in. And you talked about this gentleman going with you, the property owner, to the one voice thing and asking, what can we do next time to maybe be more successful with the Tiger Grant? But short of that Tiger Grant money, are we trying to involve these stakeholders and have them coming up with money, or what is the plan?
The plan right now is we are talking with the stakeholders, the 2 major property owners for the retail site. They couldn't be in the same room together. I mean, and the unfortunate part was they were ready to go in 2008. One of the property owners had people lined up. They're ready to go in 2008, but there was just a lot of, not necessarily pushback, but the city was kind of dragging a little bit. And so one of the things that I did and made a priority when I first got elected was let's figure out why. Because at the end of the day, we're all adults here, okay? And I understand that you guys are on the business side of it, but I'm on I got to look out for the rest of the community, and
Right.
This is something that's going to benefit us in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So, bygones be bygones, whatever. Let's sit down in a room, figure out a business deal to where it's amicable and it's going to benefit the city of Merced. Finally, they were able to come together and sit down, and they're working on it. And there is stuff going on to where they're invested in the process. The industrial side of it, they're invested in the process. They understand what's going on. They understand what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that we're looking at is people are really in the development world. People are really reluctant to kind of spend upfront money because development is really, you either have somebody that's going to come in there or you do a spec building and then you kind of wait. And that's a huge gamble for people. It's a huge gamble as a business decision. Mm-hmm. Now, as a council member, I would love it if they could do something like that to where, you put it up so the public's not paying for it, but it's going to be there until we at least know. Well, a couple of years ago, the city of Glendale, Arizona was looking at they were failing in attracting a lot of businesses and a lot of economic development. And so they went and kind of redid their model to where they're doing virtual spec buildings, if you will.
So this is like showing you what it would look like?
This is doing pretty much all of the work, not in the city, not charging a design, the plan, or anything like that until they're ready to go. But it's saying, okay, here's what the building will look like. You have all the site plan, you have the environmental done, because most of them, unless it's over 600,000 feet or 600,000 square feet, they don't have to do an environmental review. But if there's significant lapses or if there's going to be something, then you can do a mitigated negative declaration and all the technical terms that go with development. But what this would do would get all of that out of the way so that if somebody came in and said, I have a warehouse, I have a distribution warehouse that's 400,000 square foot, what do I need? Well, pull the plans right off the shelf, and this is how we can do it, because the work would already be done up to that point. We're looking at that. That's something that I'm going to continue to push, because I think that the less hoops you have to jump through, or the less boxes you have to check on your to-do list, that's going to benefit us developmentally, and it's going to benefit us in the economic side of it, because people, if they can come here and they can build, you're talking about jobs, you're talking about people that have money now to spend. It's that whole multiplier effect that they're able to do something. Mm-hmm. And so if we can keep the focus on that and look for those opportunities where, developers are going to come in and say, yes, this is how we're looking at it, this is what we'd like to do, I think we have to do that. Campus Parkway is, as the UC continues to grow,
Right.
the 2020 plan with 10,000 students by 2020,
Yes.
the Bellevue Corridor plan, as that continues to grow,
Right.
the Atwater-Merced Expressway, as that gets built out, we need to be a part of this. I'm concerned that if Atwater-Merced Expressway and their retail site beats us, it's going to put us back a little bit. And so we have to be as aggressive as we can, figuring out new and innovative ways to do this type of thing.
Well, they have some big plans over there at the AME, the Ferraria Ranch, I believe. They're planning on annexing that into the city of Atwater, and Atwater's been pretty successful over there with that Gateway shopping center. So somewhat envious, but I think you're talking about we need to invest maybe city staff time to make this virtual plan so that we have something to present. Is that what we're talking about, putting that on the priority list?
Correct. We have to look at, we can't, business as usual is, you can't just do business as you've always done it before. You know, I mean,
in other words, wait for somebody to come to you.
Exactly. You know, what's the definition of insanity, Casey?
Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, because I've been in those situations.
Yeah, exactly. And we all have, but now we don't have time to wait. And one of the things that you had mentioned is about how, you know, recovery from the article, that recovery is coming, but it's slow moving. We had an economic forecaster come in, I believe in April. And in April, when he came in and talked to us, he said, you know, economically, the valley is picking up. It started with Bakersfield, but they have the oil, so they're able to kind of do something with that.
Right.
Move to Fresno. Now it's in Madera, and Merced hasn't shot out of the cannon as much as the other communities have.
Right.
And I asked the question, well, why is that? Unfortunately, developers they're not being able to pencil everything out. Banks aren't loaning money. They're hesitant to really get in the market. But we are seeing some type of, this year, in this quarter alone, we've had 33 more permits than 33 permits as compared to last year where we had 4 permits pulled for building.
Right.
That's a good thing. That's a good step. But we're still just not there yet.
Right.
And it's figuring out why we're not there yet and how we can get there.
Yeah.
And so there's stuff going on. We're moving, just not at the pace that I think a lot of people would like to get to.
Well, you know, when you're at the bottom of the well, you can't get out soon enough. But like you say, some of these things are long-term visions, and you have to have patience. And when you get these little setbacks like the Tiger Grant and things like that, you know, you mentioned some of the other things going on in the city, and one of them is a piece of property we have over there on G in Yosemite, close to the Walton development, the old police station. And we talked about growth going north. Do you think that's something that we should get rid of, that property?
I think that, you know, when the mayor came up with, you know, thought about getting away from that plan and that development. And I'll be honest with you, at first when he said that, I thought he was crazy that we should do it. Then the more and more he looked into it and gave us more information, I don't think it does us any harm to reassess that decision. I think that we can come back, and if there's other sites or if there's something that we can do, I don't think that we should just, well, it was done, we have to do it. And I know I said, you know, with Parsons, it's been on the books, but I think that's a little bit different story. With the police station, I think that we need to really kind of take a hard look at, you know, why. I know it's the size, excuse me, it's the size that they want. It's the size that they need, actually.
Right.
But we have to be able to go back and look at, okay, what can we do differently? How can we reassess this decision to make sure that everybody's going to be, you know, satisfied with what we're going with?
You're exactly right.
And if it's a marketable piece of property, you know, you're building a retail center.
Yes.
Right there.
Yes.
Eventually, Sandpiper Road
Yes.
is going to drive from Yosemite to Mercy Avenue to the hospital.
Right.
You're going to have a development, a nice medical office complex.
That's right there on Mansionette, or Mercy and Sandpiper.
Yeah, and Sandpiper will lead there also. They're talking about building houses on the other side of Mansionette.
Yes, I understand Walton submitted a plan.
I don't know if that fits the need as it once did.
Right.
Just with what's happened and how things have changed, I'm not sure that that's the best thing right now. I think that if you're going to have a police station, you need to have a centralized location. And I think it needs to be incredibly centralized to the area, the main station. Now, if you want to do substations, I'm in favor of substations. But you have to have it centralized. And you look at the amount of the crime statistics for the city of Merced, you know, people always say, well, it's South Merced, or, you know, it's Loughborough. the downtown area from, I believe, about 21st to 25th, that's where a lot of this stuff happens.
Right.
So I want to make sure that those people are protected, and you have a proactive police department, which I think we do.
Oh, yes.
Being centrally located, and you have a place where people can go and they can get the information they need. We do need a new police station. I don't know if you've been in the police station.
I remember
We do need a new
remodeling
one.
it when I was a young man. They put a second story on it. I don't know if you know, that used to be a single story building.
Yeah.
And I think they've outgrown it. Parking, I think, is an issue. So one of the questions I had is, what can we do with the money if we sold that property? We paid about $1 million for it. I understand the market's recovering. We might get out of it what we put in it. What could we do with that money? Could we spend it on a campus parkway?
Well, we could. One of the things, and I know we're kind of bouncing all over the place here.
Well,
but
that's
one of
how
the-
it goes.
One of the things that, we spent hundreds of millions of dollars to upgrade our wastewater treatment facility plant.
Okay.
And one of the things that we didn't do, that probably should have had a little more foresight, and this was be able to handle our BODs or the wastewater from, and I apologize for speaking in acronyms. I hate using acronyms, but that's just the way the government is, and I can't remember what BODs are.
Yeah.
I just know it's too much biological waste into wastewater.
I think they
and it
call them
takes-
wet users, people
Wet
that
users,
produce
correct.
a lot of pre-treatment requirements, like Hilmar cheese, for instance.
Correct.
I was remiss that we didn't get the powdered milk plant.
Correct.
Evidently, they went to a facility that had this capacity that you're talking about.
Correct. And so one of the things that Mayor Thurston came up with the idea after I had pointed him into to some people who were really interested in doing some development was,
Right.
let's take the money from the sale of the Pepsi plant to a nut processor
Right.
and do something to where we can upgrade in order to handle some of these pre-treatment qualifications.
Right.
And I think that that's something that we can do as long as it's, if it's from a general fund or with so many of the different funds, I'm not exactly sure, if it would have to go back into the police fund, it would
Yeah.
have to go into, police improvement. I'm not really
Yeah,
sure.
it's not as easy to just take this money and do with it what you will.
Correct.
But like you say, pursuing the police station at this point may not make the best sense.
At that location.
At
Now,
that
I do think
location.
we need a new police station. I really do think we need a new police station. But at that location, I think that we need to kind of reassess the plan.
Well, let's talk a little bit about public safety. And you're right, we are going to jump around because this time goes quick. We're over
Yeah, it
halfway
does.
through, and we haven't hit hardly anything yet. But public safety, you guys have started the DART team,
Mm-hmm.
that's Disruptive Area Response Team. I can tell you I see a difference around town, but I will give the caveat, they're really going along the creek again. They're starting to chisel into the banks down there. I know this is a constant problem. We've seen some criticism in the local paper about what we do for our homeless. There was one advocate that says, how can you ask the homeless to move along if you don't have a place for them to move along to? I disagree with that statement. I think we do have places for them to go. I know you've been fairly opinionated. I jokingly asked you if we're buying bus tickets to Turlock. You assured me that we're not doing that. I think some of these people are putting out misinformation. What do you think we're doing with the homeless? We're doing things right. What do we need to do?
That's a good question. And I think that we're doing everything that we can be doing, to be honest with you. You cannot put them on, it's not the old days where people used to just buy them a bus ticket and say, hey, okay, move out of town, you have to move.
Yeah, we don't do that.
There's processes in place through Human Services that if a person is homeless and they go to HSA, the Human Services Agency, they can
Yes.
say, well, I have my parents live in Stockton. Can I get a bus ticket to Stockton? Yes, there's certain things like that in place.
Right.
The problem is that we've allowed camping to go on for so long.
Yeah.
And we've put an ordinance on the books in 2009, my first year I got elected, that said
Right.
no more camping.
That's right.
Because we do not want, that's not something that people in the community want. And
Not
if
a good image,
And
Josh.
exactly. And if you look at when you're driving and you get off the freeway at 16th and 59, in fact, I just spoke to the city manager about this a little bit ago. 16th and 59, a camp grew pretty much overnight.
Yeah.
And we need to close that down. That's where a lot of people get off the freeway.
You're right.
And so if that's the first image that we're providing to the people that are coming to visit our great community, then that's not okay. And so we need to do something. But we're really kind of, our hands are tied in this
It's
situation.
tough.
We have facilities available. We have beds available. We have places available. And everybody always says, well, they don't want to go there. They don't want to do that. And you don't have a day center. You know what? Sometimes I don't want to go to work, but I go because that's, it's a responsibility.
You're exactly right. We're coming to the end of our second segment, and I understand what you're saying. Sometimes we do things we don't want to do, and I appreciate people that say we have to cater, but gosh, how much more can we do unless you get individualized plans for every person? And I don't think that's feasible with the money we have. I'd ask people to stick with us through the break for our third and final segment with our fireside chat with Councilmember Josh Pedroso here on AM 1480, the Voice of the Valley. Stay with us, folks. Folks, welcome back to the third segment of our fireside chat here on KYOS 1480 AM, the Voice of the Valley. We have great local programming here on Saturday morning, and today we're privileged to have in studio Josh Pedroso, City Council Member at Large. They're going to go to districts here. We're going to maybe talk about that before the end of the show. But one thing we were talking about before the break was our homeless situation. Whether or not we're doing enough, as Councilmember Pedroso said, we have beds available every night, folks. And this situation is something that we've struggled with. We have the continuum of care where we're supposed to get a handle on this within 10 years. I think we're 5 years into the continuum of care. One thing I've kind of railed about that showed its head is when they finished the Bradley overpass, the homeless camp was there by the BNSF tracks that was a little more visible once they cleaned up the construction material. And like you said, there's some it's not as easy as just going in there and abating it. First of all, you have to be notified by the property owners.
Correct. And we can't, the city of Merced, it's still private property. And so the city of Merced just can't go onto private property and say, you can't do this because we have an ordinance. The property owners have to alert us that there is a nuisance and allow us privileges or allow us the opportunity, allow us to go in there and clean it up. And right now, the last I heard that we talked about the 16th and 59 property, that we get the final property owner to come in and say, please help us out. This is an issue. Yeah. We have people, we're still working on getting all the property owners, because it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle over there, to tell us about McKee and allow us the opportunity to go in there and clean it up. And I think people sometimes think that the fact that we're doing this is we're saying no homeless, and homelessness is a criminal act. That's not it at all. No. And I have no problem, and I will always continue to vote to fund programs to go for homelessness, because sometimes people just need that extra little help, that hand out to get a hand up. And I think that's as a society we should do that. But you cannot spit in the face of the community and of the taxpayer when you continue to say, this isn't something that we want to do. We're going to do what we want to do regardless of the ordinances and the laws that you have on the books. And so I know that some cities have, there's been talk about a day center.
What's your opinion on that?
I'm not in favor of a day center. I think that, by kind of the same thing with camping, because we allowed camping to go on for so long, we didn't have an ordinance. People caught wind of that, and they came and camped here in Merced. I think that would be the same with a day center. I don't necessarily agree. I think that, the fact that you have places like the D Street Shelter, you have the Rescue Mission, you have some of these other areas that can help you out. You need to apply for a job. You need something. There's opportunities out there to look at it. And so I think that by doing a day center, I personally don't believe it's the most efficient use of taxpayer dollars.
I agree with you. I think that if you provide a place during the daytime, I just think it's going to attract more people. I don't know if it's really going to give them a hand up. I noticed that Turlock, they had an article in the paper, I forget, it was Merced County Times, something a few weeks back, and they have a pretty proactive approach on their homeless. They try to document them. They try not to let any more come into the area, and try to help the ones that they have. And it seems like sometimes we just get overwhelmed. You mentioned that Napa was putting in $100,000 in their budget to buy houses for these folks.
Well, what Napa HUD just asked Napa, or HUD came up with a plan, and Napa came up with a plan that said they were going to provide $100,000 in their budget to do a down payment assistance for either, if it's to rent a house or to buy a house. $100,000 is a lot of money. And even when you're dealing with a $194 million budget like the city of Merced does, only $38 million of that is discretionary dollars.
That's right. People don't realize that.
And every single dollar is accounted for. I mean, everything goes somewhere, and that money has to be spent on certain things. I mean, we can't just take the water fund money to pay for Parks and Recreation or to pay for an additional police officer. And so it's tight, and we just don't have that extra income that a Napa would generate because of the tourism that comes through Napa. I mean,
Sure.
we're talking about something that's an amazing place to go and visit. You know, people come from all over the world
Right.
to look at that, so they have that extra general fund boost, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have that right now. And with every penny being pinched in regards to youth, in regards to public safety, we have to be very careful and very thoughtful on how we're spending that money.
Yeah.
And so it's not something that right now I would ever support, but it's something that's out there, and I think people are talking about it.
Yeah, I know there's been efforts by local businessmen to try to get support, try to get private money. It's just doesn't appear to be coalescing, doesn't seem to be there. But I think we can't lay back on our efforts with the DART team, with the outreach that we have now. Let's talk about youth in our town. You know, we had a lot of gyrations with the youth council. I guess we now have a youth council. How do you feel that's going? Do you think that's we've got a budget for them, I guess, of $25,000. How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, I have high hopes for it. You know, I sat on there as a representative from the high school district to try and get kids in there, or to get students. I think one of the things that we have to keep focused on, we were all teenagers, man. I tell my students,
Yes.
Believe it or not, you know, at some point in time I was there, and
Yeah.
I had a lot more hair than I do now.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago either, the teenager part.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. But we have to show that we're interested. We have to keep the focus and the positivity and the momentum behind it, because, you know, the students and the teenagers, sometimes they lose focus, and they'll start asking, well, why do we have to do this? Why are we doing it? Well, we don't want it. Why do we have to? We want to be a part of it. In September, I was at the League of California Cities Conference, and there's some really good, and they have these different communities that come together and show what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
And they have some really good communities that have instituted some programs in order to, for youth. And so it's kind of finding what they've done with their youth councils, the programs that they have for youth, and manipulating their model so that it fits for us. And I think that we're in the process of that. And I think that we have some great kids on there right now, people that are really interested, they're really focused, and they want to, continue to be a part of this. It's about maintaining that momentum and maintaining that drive is what's important. And it's an enthusiasm thing. If kids
Yes.
are happy about it, they'll run with it. But if they start to get bored, or they don't want to do anymore, that's when it's going to be difficult.
And one of the things you bring up is the kids grow up. And I think since we've initiated the youth council, some of the early participants have now moved on to college or higher education, and trying to find people to backfill or come into that position. It's going to be a constant evolution of bringing the new kids up, the older kids, helping them, mentoring them, and of course with the city guidance. And I know there's some concerns with Brown Acts and things like that, and you have to kind of walk a minefield there. But hopefully this youth council, because as you know, we talk about the homicide rate. Last year, record number of homicides in the county. The city's not doing so hot, and we need to have options for these kids. Of course, I'm a big proponent of the Boys and Girls Club, some of the private efforts, Mojo, those type of things. I'm sure you support those also.
Absolutely.
So, and being an educator, you see it firsthand with the kids, and I know that it's very difficult. Let me just ask you one question. We're talking
Sure.
about youth. When are we going to open McNamara Park, the soccer fields? Any idea? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I wish I had a timeline for you. I wish I could tell you. I do want to say that, and I'll say this. I think that we, as a council, I think that, and I've said this at our council meetings, I think that we should have taken a little bit more time to look at the plans that were developed and to really vet the references and really go back through. We selected a company that wasn't a local company, who's done great work, and they do great work all throughout the community. But apparently putting down a turf field is a whole lot different ballgame than what they were used to. And so that's unfortunate. But it gave them an opportunity, and we had some references that they had done good work. And so that's what we thought. And now I don't know, there's two sides of it. One side saying it's not their fault, the other side saying
Sure.
it isn't. But I will say that, we should have really looked we should have looked a little bit harder and taken a little bit more time on this decision, because it's really putting McNamara Park, which is a great place.
Yeah, it is. I was over there, looked at what the development was. It looks great. I mean, from the outside, it's hard to see what's wrong with it, but I guess it's subterranean, things we can't see.
But but the whole point of doing that park was to give kids a place to play.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear there's like 6,000 kids that play soccer in our community.
And I thought the number was even higher, but it's something that kids are getting involved in. And those turf fields are awesome. I mean, they're so great to look at. Yeah. The kids can go out there and they last so long, and it saves water, it saves money. I think it's something that we, as a council, and I'll take the blame. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. That's not what I want to do. It's just a matter of making sure that next time we look at what's best moving forward for the project, and this is something.
The soccer fields seem like getting the pool open easy. I know that a few years ago that was a big deal, getting the pool open over there, and you were very instrumental in helping out getting funds, because again, we didn't have the money for the lifeguards. I think it needed to be replastered. There was a pump, blah blah blah. So I know that side of town has been waiting for those fields, and it's good to see that at least we're trying to get it going on. Let's talk a little bit about Measure T. We only have a few minutes left. This is the redistricting right now. As I say, you're a council member at large. What's going on with this Measure T?
Well, tonight, as we record this on Monday, October 6th, tonight we will look at a letter to send out, or an educational letter, like you would get your newsletter in your city, your municipal bill, that'll tell people in the community what's going on with Measure T and why we're doing it and why it's important. Measure T would split the city up into 6 districts. The dividing line, as we've said, would be the Santa Fe rail line, and that's closest to Bear Creek. And if you think about G Street, people always ask, because I get confused sometimes, the rail lines. The G Street undercrossing, that's the Santa Fe rail line. That way we can, that would be the dividing line of North versus South Merced, and 3 districts would have to be on the northern part of that, and 3 districts would be on the southern part of that, or east or western part, depending on how you look at it.
And the reason that's a dividing line is the population is about evenly split in Merced on that line.
And one of the big things I had a problem with was the fact that I don't have a problem with districts. I think that, as a community, we should go to districts eventually, and we should go to districts. I don't believe that there's racially voting going on in this town, and that was one of the things that came to us. And when you look at a map of where people are at, it's really a shotgun approach on where people live in this community. Right. And so I think that moving to districts is okay. It's a great thing, but I don't like it when people start talking bad about Merced. When they talk bad about Merced in regards to this, I take offense to that, because I wasn't raised that way. I don't believe you were raised that way.
Well, you and I both take offense to that. I think MALDEF, while they may have been good attention, I think that our situation was unique. You've been around. We've had many Hispanic council members. It's not that we haven't had representation. Now, even in the last election, I think we had 3 or 4 candidates. So I really don't understand this, but I guess we have to do it. Otherwise, we're going to be sued.
And the way the California Voting Rights Act has been written and has been changed, it's really forcing communities to go into districts, which I don't have a problem with. Again, I think we should. The only thing that I worry about sometimes is, I don't represent North Merced, I don't represent South Merced, and I hate using the geographic titles, because if I start doing that, then I lose focus on what I was elected to do, and that's to represent the city of Merced.
That's right.
And the residents that live here. And so I don't want us to get into those fiefdoms, if you will.
Well, let's a hypothetical just came to my mind. Parsons. Suppose you represent the Parsons district. Those people are going to really be on you to put their side. And is that good for the whole city? Like you say, you represent the whole city at large, not just a specific district. And one of the concerns I've heard is, do we have the critical mass of voting population, to really make district elections work? We might be electing some council members with just a handful of people.
And that's an issue. But the thing is, there's 29,000 registered voters in the city of Merced. If you look at not just the city of Merced, but the state, at the federal level, people don't vote.
I know.
And that's the most unfortunate thing of it.
Very, very.
Regardless of how you vote, or you just got to get out there and vote. And so the fact that, that's been an argument and something that's been discussed, I understand. We have to do better, I think, as leaders to make sure or to tell people, hey, go to vote. This is the only thing this is the guarantee. This is the ultimate freedom that we have in our country.
Doesn't cost you anything. I mean,
Exactly.
You can drop your ballot off. You don't even have to put a stamp on it. This time, as you know, being here before these microphones goes so quickly. We have about 45 seconds left. What do you want to end? What do you want to end on?
Well, I want to again thank you for having me in here, and I
You're
think
more
this
than
is
welcome.
great what you guys are doing with the fireside chats and talking to different people. We're working. I mean, we really are, and my favorite thing as a council member is when people call me up or they send me an email and say, I have a street light out, or I got jumped by a couple people at my job today, at work today. We need more street lights in this area. That's what I like to do, and I love the policy side of it, but I like being accessible to the people. And so anytime anybody has any concerns or questions, feel free to give me a call, email me, anything, so that I can do what I can, because this thing, we all have to do this together. We're only going to move our city further as we work together and focus on what's important. So.
Well, I think you've represented the city and the council and yourself very well. I know you're not afraid to take the heat. And when you're in those positions, the criticisms, good and bad accolades, are directed at you. And I found that you're always very approachable, and at least you'll tell us what you think, and you don't beat around the bush. And I think that's refreshing, and that's what we need.
Well, one of the things I will say this is, as you get to know me, I don't like to beat around the bush very much, because I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste my time in telling you something that I can't do. And if I can't, I'll tell you, and if I can, I'll work as hard as I can to see if we can. But I'll always be accessible. That's the thing.
Well, we'll try not to make it so long between visits here on these radio station or these airwaves, and I appreciate you coming in. Thanks again, Josh.
Thanks a lot, Casey.
You're welcome.